So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The Ugly Duckling, 1843. It was so beautiful out on the country. It was summer, the wheat fields were golden, the oats were green, and down among the green meadows the hay was stacked. There the stork minced about on his red legs, cackling away ineptition, which was the language his mother had taught him. Round about the field and meadowlands rose vast forests in which deep lakes lay hidden. Yes, it was indeed lovely out there in the country. In the midst of the sunshine, there stood an old manor house that had a deep moat around it. From the walls of the manor right down to the water's edge, great burdock leaves grew, and there were some so tall that little children could stand upright beneath the biggest of them. In this wilderness of leaves, which was as dense as the forest itself, a duck sat on her nest, hatching her ducklings. She was becoming somewhat weary because sitting is such a dull business and scarcely anyone came to see her. The other ducks would much rather swim in the moat than waddle out and squat under the burdock leaf to gossip with her. But at last the eggshells began to crack, one after another. Peep peep, said the little things as they came to life and poked out their heads. Quack quack, said the duck, and quick as quick can be, they all waddled out to have a look at the green world under the leaves. Their mother let them look as much as they pleased because green is good for the eyes. How wide the world is, said all the young ducks. They certainly had much more room now than they had when they were in their eggshells. Do you think this is the whole world? Their mother asked. Why, it extends on and on, clear across to the other side of the garden and right on into the parson's field. Though that is further than I have ever been. I do hope that you are all hatched, she said as she got up. No, not quite all. The biggest egg still lies here. How much longer is this going to take? I am really rather tired of it all, she said, as she settled back on her nest. How goes it? Asked an old duck who came to pay her a call. It takes a long time with that one egg, said the duck on the nest. It won't crack, but look at the others. They are the cutest little ducklings I have ever seen. They look exactly like their father, the wretch. He hasn't come to see me at all. Let's have a look at the egg that won't crack, the old duck said. It's a turkey egg. You can take my word for it. I was full like that once myself. What trouble and care I had with those turkey children, for I may as well tell you they are afraid of the water. I simply could not get them into it. I quacked and snapped at them, but it wasn't a bit of use. Let me see the egg. Certainly it's a turkey egg. Let it lie and go teach your other children to swim. Oh, I'll sit a little longer. I've been at it so long already that I may as well sit here half the summer. Suit yourself, said the old duck, and away she waddled. At last the big egg did crack. Peep, said the young one, and out he tumbled out, but he was so big and ugly. The duck took That's why she's so fat. See that red rag around her leg? That's a wonderful thing and the highest destination a duck can get. It shows that they don't want to lose her and that she's to have special attention from man and beast. Shake yourselves. Don't turn your toes in. A well-bred duckling turns his toes way out just as his father and mother do, this way. So then, now duck your necks and say quack. They did as she told them, but the other ducks around them looked on and said right out loud, "See here, must we have this brood too?" Just as if there weren't enough of us already. And fie, what an ugly-looking fellow that duckling is. We won't stand for him. One duck charged up and bit his neck. "Let him alone," his mother said. "He isn't doing any harm." "Possibly not," said the duck who bit him. "But he's too big and strange, and therefore he needs a good whacking." "What nice-looking children you have, mother," said the old duck with the rag around her leg. "They're all pretty except that one. He didn't come out so well. It's a pity you can't hatch him again." "That can't be managed, your ladyship," said the mother. "He isn't so handsome, but he's as good as can be, and he swims just as well as the rest, or I should say even a little better than they do. I hope his looks will improve with age, and after a while he won't seem so big. He took too long in the egg, and that's why his figure isn't all that it should be." She pinched his neck and preened his feathers. "Moreover, he's a drake, so it won't matter so much. I think he will be quite strong, and I'm sure he will amount to something." "The other ducklings are pretty enough," said the old duck. "Now make yourself right at home, and if you find an eel's head, you may bring it to me." So they felt quite at home, but the poor duckling who had been the last one out of his egg, and who looked so ugly, was picked and pushed about and made fun of by the ducks and the chickens as well. "He's too big," said they all. The turkey gobbler, who thought himself an emperor because he was born wearing spurs, puffed up like a ship under full sail and bore down upon him, gobbling and gobbling until he was red in the face. The poor duckling did not know where he dared stand or where he dared walk. He was so sad because he was so desperately ugly, and because he was the laughing-stock of the whole barnyard. So it went on the first day, and after that things went from bad to worse. The poor duckling was chased and buffeted about by everyone. Even his own brothers and sisters abused him. "Oh," they would always say, "how we wish the cat would chase you, you ugly thing." And his mother said, "How I do You're so ugly that we have taken a fancy to you. Come with us and be a bird of passage. In another marsh nearby, there are some fetching wild geese, all nice young ladies who know how to quack. You are so ugly that you completely turn their heads. Bing, bang. Shots rang in the air, and these two ganders fell dead among the reeds. to swim or dive in the water. Of myself I say nothing, but as the old woman, our mistress, there's no one on earth wiser than she is. Do you imagine she wants to go swimming and feel the water rise over her head? You don't understand me, said the duckling. Well, if we don't, who would? Surely you don't think you're cleverer than the cat and the old woman, to say nothing for myself. Don't to sing again. It was beautiful spring